What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Matty P here with another episode of Steelers War Room on Steelers Touch and Under. Our War Room series is focused on putting in the minds of Omar Khan, Mike Tomlin, and Andy Weidel and the rest of the Steelers front office as they look to put together a winning roster in 2024 and beyond. And as I like to say, a roster that will hopefully compete for a 7th Lombardi trophy, even if it's not this year. Hopefully it's next year. All right, on today's show, I wanted to talk about a wide receiver option that I feel like is flying under the radar. Now, the Steelers have been talked about with trades for everyone from DK Metcalf to Cortland Sutton to Terry McLaurin. I've talked about him. We've talked about even potentially T. Higgins. There have been a bunch of guys talked about, but really it looks like the Steelers are probably going to be dipping into the free agent market. I'm recording this just within the 24 to 48 hours of the Tyler Boyd news coming out around that can go into the Titans. I didn't want to see him in the black and gold. I think he said some very disparaging things about being in the black and gold. I think it's more than gamesmanship. I'm happy to see him sign with someone else and not be worried about him coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers. But there is a guy in Hunter Renfrow that I am interested in. And here's why. We're going to start off. Let's have a look at the free agent guys. We're only talking about the free agents. This was a big year for NFL free agency in terms of wide receivers. You saw A.J. Brown get an extension. Amon-Ra St. Brown got an extension. They're both now over $30 million a year. The Steelers traded Deontay Johnson before he entered into free agency, but it's listed here on over the cap. Gabriel Davis signed I can't believe the Jaguars are actually going to pay him that much. Lockett got extended or re-signed. Keenan Allen got traded to the Bears. Mike Evans got re-signed with the Buccaneers. Stephon Diggs got traded to the Texans, as we know. Calvin Ridley moved on with the Titans. Michael Pittman Jr. got franchise tagged. That made sense for the Colts. I think they should now can try and sign him to a long-term deal. I'd be doing that. I really like him. So it was a big situation. But if you look at the current average pay per year, that's the current APY in the column, just sits below 2032 if you're looking on your screen right now. But for those in audio, I'm talking you through it. Beckham Jr., obviously we also know that he's with the Dolphins. The reason why that's not updated on this, basically, they wait for contracts to be signed, either lodged with the NFL or to appear on a team's website and fully approve that. So that's why you don't see anything next to Odell Beckham Jr. But if you look at this current APY per year, now this for any players not with their team yet or they're signed, it's still last year's number. Hunter Renfrow, $15.85 million. That is pretty high compared to some of the other guys. But it's not high compared to normal, like to the wide receiver market. We know that they've been getting paid the last few years. But let's look at him because the Steelers are probably not going to have to pay Hunter Renfrow that much amount of money. If you look at and I've just put up on the screen, if you just look at the available free agent wide receivers right now, as I said, I know Beckham Jr. and Tyler Boyd are off there. We just talked about that. Zay Jones is available. Allen Robinson is available from last year. That was with the Steelers, but he's getting old. He's getting slow. Technically, Randall Cobb, Matt Slater is available. Julio Jones. I went and had a look before I did this video at Julio Jones. I do think he really is now just a red zone threat. And I know the Steelers could have been better with their red zone offense last year, but I don't see that fit for the Steelers. Really, apart from, and we'll talk about stats comparative for Hunter Renfrow last year versus other blokes, Hunter Renfrow is probably the best option on this list besides Zay Jones, but they're the same age. And Zay Jones is a bit more of a replica of George Pickens versus a possession receiver like Hunter Renfrow. The interesting thing about Hunter Renfrow too, even Devontae Adams, who's his teammate joined him in 2022, who but basically took a lot of the targets away from Renfrow. Basically, he said that he's never seen someone with the football acumen of Hunter Renfrow. People have also talked about how much he's a teammate, how good a teammate he is, the culture. They're things that we know that the Steelers and Mike Tomlin really, really like. But let's delve into Hunter Renfrow. Let's have a look at what his stats are. Let's have a look at his production, why he could be helpful for the Steelers. So he's had 363 targets thrown his way for 269 receptions. He's caught 2,884 yards worth of ball, 10.7 yards per reception, 17 TDs over his career, 142 first downs. His catch percentage is 74.1%, which is pretty high over career average. He's had some really good years where he had 80.5% in 2021. That's when he caught 103 receptions. He was almost top of the league out of 128 targets for over 1,000 yards. Otherwise, he's had a couple of leaner years in the last 2 years. Funnily enough, they're the 2 years that Davante Adams has been there, which, as I said, he kind of has taken the attention away from Renfro. You also have a situation in the last 2 years where the Raiders have gone through these quarterbacks. Derek Carr, who they ended up benching for Jarrett Stidham, especially after the Steelers game, for the Franco Harris jersey retirement. Then you had Aiden O'Connell in 2023, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Brian Hoyer. It's not like the receivers for the Raiders were getting a little ball, particularly when they'd also brought in Mike Mayer in the draft. You've also got a situation where they had Josh Jacobs. They used him a lot. They had a couple of other receivers besides Davante Adams. It wasn't a situation where Hunter Renfrow was set up for success. But it's a really good thing for the Steelers because we know we've talked so much about it on this channel, whether it's through the draft live streams, whether it's all the shows that do with Shannon White. He's very hell-bent on this, and he's right around the Steelers using a second. The Steelers in the Arthur Smith offense will not use their second wide receiver like they would in other types of offenses. Hunter Renfrow is a good teammate. We've talked about that. Good acumen. We've talked about that. He's a mature guy, but he's young enough to be able to relate to the young guys. He's not a guy over 30 and who's past it either. Not that every receiver over 30 is past it. Someone who's about to turn 33 in the next couple of days. Trust me, at 33, you don't feel over the hill. But in Hunter Renfrow's situation, he's kind of this perfect blend between youth and experience, but a guy that will accept potentially some lesser targets. We'll talk about money at the end of the show. But you look at these stats on the board right now. He's definitely a guy that can produce. His yards per target average over the course of his career is 7.9 as well, which is actually quite high even for a possession receiver. The other thing that I thought was really interesting is that he has a very low average depth of target. And this is why I say he's more of a possession receiver versus George Pickens, combat catch, extend the play, that type of guy. His average depth of target in 2019-2020 was just around 7 yards. Then it dipped to 6.5 and 6.8. And then last year it was 5.6. Last year only had 37 targets thrown his way, though, so you do put that in context. But his drop percent is very, very low. 5.6% in his rookie year, 2.16% in 2020. In 2021, it was 1.6%. So he had 2 drops on 128 targets where he caught 103 receptions. This guy can catch the football. Very good player in that regard. And then last year and in 2022, he only had 1 drop. So this is not a Deontay Dropson player. This is a Hunter Renfro is a very short catcher for the or receiver if the Steelers were to bring him in. The other golden thing, or the X factor to Hunter Renfro, he is a kick and punt returner. Well, more of a punt returner, but you could adapt with the new kicking rules to be able to use him in the kicking game. But he's a punt returner. And we know the Steelers are slightly down on returners through all the different off-season changes they've made. So that can be very, very helpful. I then thought it would be interesting for you guys out there for me to have a look at how he compared to other guys last year. He only had, as I say, 25 catches for 255 yards, no touchdowns, 11 first downs, average of 12.5, quarterback rating he allowed created of 87.1. There were no interceptions thrown toward his way. He dropped literally 1 ball. Really, really good there. Jamison Williams was someone that came back. The Lions were trying out here. He had 24. But if you look at guys that are available right now as free agents, you've got to go all the way down before you get to Marquez Valdes-Scantling, had 21. He's probably the only other viable candidate that I kind of see on the free agent market right now for the Steelers. And Zay Jones, I think he had 40. Yeah, he had 34 catches. But Zay Jones had it for 321 yards, barely 70 yards more, but he had literally 9 more catches, which was pretty significant. DJ Chalk, who a lot of the subs on the channel I know were keen on. We've talked about him in live shows. I was keen on him. He had 35 catches for 525 yards. I do think it was a mistake. I thought the Steelers should have gone there, but good on the Chargers. This is a very good young like-for-like replacement for Mike Williams, who they let go, obviously, to the Jets. I think he ended up at Odell Beckham Jr. You can see on the screen as well. He had 35 receptions for 565 yards last year, but he's a lot more. He catches the ball a lot further downfield. He's not the possession catcher that some of these guys are. Michael Gallup, who signed the $3 million deal with the Raiders, funnily enough, he again 34 receptions for 418 yards. But Hunter Renfro, I guess for me, Hunter Renfro could be the perfect mix of experience, not too old. You can get him on the cheap because he's made some money already in the NFL. He's used to not being the number 1 guy, but He is a good receiver. He's a good possession receiver. He's a sure catcher. And Mike Tomlin has talked very highly of Hunter Renfrow in the past. So don't be surprised for the Steelers not to make a blockbuster trade and for them to bring into camp a guy like Hunter Renfrow, particularly with what Gallup got. You might be able to get Hunter Renfrow for $3 to $5 million a year. Maybe it's bloated with incentives. Maybe it's 2.5, 3 guaranteed with all those incentives. But that could be really exciting for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's a no frills, not necessarily a big name guy, but there could be a big result out of bringing a guy like that into the room, especially to help him mentor a guy like a Roman Wilson, not have to elevate Van Jefferson beyond the 3rd or 4th spot, which is where he should be. We've got no idea really what Calvin Austin's going to be able to do. We've only seen a little bit of that, and we saw it in a winning offense where Matt Canada said he didn't even know how to use him. But you let me know in the comments. Would you be happy to see Hunter Renfrow on the black and gold? And what do you think would be a fair price to pay for Hunter Renfrow? I'm Matty P. As always, go Steelers.